If you find that when you explain your work, you get the same responses again and again and again, then of course, it might be the people listening to you, but the answer might also be found in the mirror. Because I hate to say it, at some point, it might not be them. Let's break down what might be happening. You might find that you explain something and then maybe they nod, maybe they don't. They ask you a question, you explain it, and then the next person asks a question that seems to imply that the first answer you gave, they did not understand because it's just been answered, or so you think. In your mind, you've explained something extremely clearly, succinct, precise, etc. And in their mind, you're starting to get the impression that it's not landing exactly in the way you thought. Now, this video is all about the 3 things that you can do in order to change the reactions you're getting by what you are doing. But I'm going to exemplify the principle of this through the patients that I see. I'm an audiologist by trade, which means that I'm used to seeing patients that have different concerns with their auditory system, and that's what they're coming for. And at this point, I have probably seen thousands of patients that have concerns. Now, when they come, I've never met them before. They've never met me before. But because I see patients again and again and again and again, I've realized that there are certain questions or certain comments that I keep hearing and certain patterns emerge. And when you take the time to consider the patterns, you start to know what to expect and you can pivot and tweak accordingly. For example, one of the most common complaints that comes when people are having issues with their hearing, particularly in age-related hearing, is I find that people mumble more. It's just they're not articulating. You're fine, you speak great, but especially when they have accents, it's really hard to understand them. I think it might be the TV, or I can't hear my grandkids. They're just not articulate enough. I struggle to hear in background noise. I find that it's just all a one sea of noise everywhere, even the person that I'm trying to speak to. I find this social situation so hard that I've avoided going out to noisy places like restaurants altogether. These are some typical things that, as an audiologist, you will hear again and again and again from someone who's a little older who's struggling with hearing. And as you hear that response again and again and again, you also grow to have responses that resonate with people to help them understand why that may be happening. Not only that, that's from their experience, but there are also certain comments that I receive on a very regular basis from my patients about me. There are 3 in particular. Number 1, my name is Priscilla. So the most common one is, oh, Priscilla, like Priscilla Presley. That's a common one. Or Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. And at a certain point, you just have to smile and nod, chuckle along. Okay? That's what I've learned to do. The second is, oh, you know who you remind me of? Grace Jones, but she might be before your time. Again, I think, cool. Thank you. Bold-headed Black woman who happened to also be a supermodel. I'm not mad at that. The third that I get by far the most is, where's that accent from? I sense an American twang. Or, where in the US are you from? And then I say, I'm not from the US. Canada? At which point I say, no, I went to an international school. Oh, with lots of American teachers, I bet. No, not really. Lots of American friends? Neither. And then what proceeds is just a, huh. The point is this, that all of these responses are data that I have accumulated from seeing patient after patient after patient, tens, hundreds, thousands of patients at this point, and noticed the trends in order to know how to anticipate and to help the patient in the best way that I can. It's obviously a different context where you are speaking to your boss, but the principle is the same. It is that the more data you get, the better able you are to use that data in order to serve the person in front of you. So these are 3 ways you can get more data to be more effective. Number 1, in order to get more data, you need to get more data. What that means is to do more volume. You want to speak on more occasions and to more people in order to get their feedback such that you then know, when I say this, this is how it lands, or this is how it's received. And because I keep hearing the same response again and again and again, it might be someone that keeps misunderstanding you in a certain way, like me with my accent. They keep thinking, oh, this person's American. Well, that just is what it is. It's my accent. But then you are able to say, okay, they keep misunderstanding that. How do I tweak this such that the next person has everything they need in order to understand? But you only get that data by doing more volume. And that's where many people already stumble, because they just don't want to do the presentations, or they don't want to have the conversations after the presentations that are going to help them move forward. Be the person who says yes to speaking more. And then turns out you will be the person that most people say, wow, you're such a natural. It really just came by doing the volume. That's number one. Number two, which I've just alluded to, is the fact that doing the volume then is not enough. It is to notice the pattern when you do the volume. If you do the same thing again and again and again and again and again, and keep saying, well, I don't know, people just keep giving me the same response, what that tells you is that you're doing the same thing again and again and again and expecting a different result, which some people say is the definition of insanity, but didn't come from my mouth. The point is, what you want to do is take the data you have and see what you notice, see what you can extract from it. And then from there, you are able to not just do a bunch, but to learn, and to learn intentionally. So some of the questions you want to ask yourself then are, what do people often misunderstand me on? Where do I find that people's eyes glaze over? Where do my own eyes glaze over? What is it that I find super boring that I have to explain, that I can learn how to explain in a more engaging way? But the best questions of all are going to be the ones that emerge from your audience or your listeners from doing it again and again and again. They will have questions, they will have responses. And when you take that data and analyze it, then you will have real life data. So go into it with your own questions, but also allow the data to speak to you, the people who are listening to you. And then the third thing you want to do is then apply what it is you have learned. Let's say, for example, you've discovered that there are certain measures that your company should take in order to reduce the risk of a cyber attack. And you realize the magnitude of it. And every time you bring it up, your boss or your CEO says, okay, so this is something we maybe need to consider in the next 5 years, if that. And to you, it's like London Bridge is on fire. I don't think you understand what this means for the company. If you've had the data several times that they keep minimizing the problem, and you genuinely can see that they do not understand the magnitude of it. Number two, what keeps happening is that at the end of your presentation, there's little concern as to what is going to happen as a result, and there's a let's just keep things the way they were. Then number three is that you change something about the way you articulate the problem. And what you would want to consider here is explaining the problem on their terms. What are terms that they would consider that this is an urgent matter? It needs to be done right now. It needs to be catered to right now. Think of the problem in terms of their perspective, and then illustrate it from those terms. And that is far more likely to get you a response that indicates they now understand how big this problem is. With those three elements, number one, getting more data. Number two, noticing, developing the knack of noticing. And number three, changing according to what you notice, you will very quickly become the most competent and clear speaker in the room, because most people will not do this. They will not assess how it is they're coming across. If you are the person who's willing to do that, rest assured, the fact that you measure and then you revise and then you do differently means you will set yourself apart from everybody else who's not willing to iterate when they don't get it right the first time. And they just keep doing the same thing again and again and again. Do not be that person. Because if you really want to be heard when you're in the room, you need to do what most people who are not heard will not do. And that is to get the proper feedback, to revise, and then to iterate again and again and again. If you want to learn more about doing that, join the technical executive because we do just that so that the level of your influence finally matches your level of expertise.